Hi, my name is Brad Sandler. I'm working on the taxing and spending side of this class, and what I'd like to discuss with you today is some of the things that maybe you haven't thought about when it comes to spending and taxes and what that means in an MMT world. First off, I'm going to assume that you've already taken the first class as an introduction to MMT, and in that class you were probably given the information, which you may already know, that taxes do not fund spending, and spending is something the federal government does by just putting money into circulation. So I'm not going to go into detail on those processes and how they work, because I think you've already been introduced to them, and I think what's more important to understand why we think about spending and taxes in the ways that we do, and maybe possibly broach upon some ideas of how to work around it in your daily life and when interacting with others. The two very much intersect. So to start off, we know that taxes are not part of spending. We've always thought of economics as being tax and spend. Well, it's really spend and tax, because we have to spend first and before we tax. So first off, you're already thinking of it wrong. And I did too for many years. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing about MMT is you learn more as you go along, and the more you know, the easier it is to make all those arcane pieces, like when it talks about treasury bonds and things such as that, that you will get to in later classes, make a whole lot more sense. So all these building blocks are very, very important. And talking about spending in a larger manner, in fact, in a macro manner, will probably help in your future understanding and learning about modern money theory. So to go on about spending and taxes, whenever you talk with anybody about economics, it's always in terms of taxes and spending. Oh, they're spending too much money, they're wasting money, they spend money like a drunken sailor, they're all a bunch of thieves, the money that we all give them in taxes ends up in their pockets, and all these other stories that you hear from everybody all over the place. That's not even getting into the things that are not directly related to taxing and spending, such as the Fed is owned by private parties, mostly the Rothschilds and other very strange conspiracy theories, a lot of them steeped in racism and other prejudices. So let's get into just that. When you keep hearing people say tax spending is tax dollars, taxes come from spending, it's my taxes, it's the taxpayer's money. What do you think of when you hear the term taxpayer? I can't speak for others, but unfortunately, I always think of a white guy in a suit getting out of a Cadillac, even though I pay taxes. And I don't wear suits, and I don't drive a Cadillac. So most of those qualifications I don't fit, and I imagine it's the same for most of you out there as well. However, rarely do people think of a taxpayer as somebody who's spending their money, providing a living for other people, just barely subsiding themselves on whatever kind of welfare they can scrap up nowadays, and hoping to get by. But they're taxpayers just as well. They don't drive a Cadillac. They may or may not be white. Doesn't matter. But nobody thinks of them as taxpayer, and yet their pay of rent, no matter where it comes from, goes to somebody who pays taxes. Probably a white guy in a suit and a Cadillac. The point here is that by just using the term taxpayers' money, we're already getting into certain prejudices that cloud our thinking. When we use the term public money instead of taxpayers' money, that what is being spent is the public money, well then it's for everybody. It's for that rich guy with a Cadillac, and it's for that person just struggling to get by and hoping to make the rent so that guy can pay taxes. That's what happens. That's what reality is. So when we're talking about taxes, we're talking about something very important, but not how we pay for things, and we can't think of it that way. I know even up to 2 years ago, knowing differently, I still thought, reflexively, almost every time I heard about something being spent on something, $5,000 toilet seat by the military, like, that's my money. It's not. It's our money. And in fact, it's only been lent to us. Lent to us for the purpose of collecting back taxes so that the government can control the economy. An extremely important aspect of what the government does when they create money is they manage to control it as well. They use taxes to be increased in order to slow down inflation. They lower taxes when there's deflation. At least that's how you manage an economy with taxes. At the same time, sometimes spending can actually be deflationary. So the spending is not connected directly to taxes. People think that, oh, the more we spend, eventually, if we keep running deficits, we'll have inflation. The two are not connected. They're only connected when one is the taxes are needed to control the inflation or deflation. And in fact, the healthcare for all would be potentially a deflationary event. Not something that you'll hear because most people talk about, well, I don't want to pay more taxes, ignoring the fact that they won't be paying for their health care anymore. They won't be paying huge deductibles. They won't be paying for their dental care separate from their health care. They won't be paying for their vision care separate from their health care, or even hearing. All these things get all wrapped up into one. And you know what? If we have health care for all, you'll never have to change your doctor. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor because the insurance plan doesn't stay. One of the consistent lies about even Obamacare was this whole thing of death panels, which don't occur, and yet because with the insurance company system that we have right now, what we're spending on actually does create death panels in a sense that we have to ration things. And probably there would be some rationing that goes on under Medicare for All, but it wouldn't be as dramatic. It would probably be done more with consensus meeting of the minds with the family and the physicians. There would be a lot more room for involvement. And this is what public money would be spent on. We could spend on education for all. We can give public education to everybody who qualifies. What does that mean by qualify? Well, it's very simple. It means if you can get into the college, public college of your choice. As long as it's a public college and you meet the qualifications for a student, you're in. And you don't have to worry about paying a bill for tuition at the beginning of the year, or you're forced out of your classes, or even worst case, you take all your classes and you couldn't make that last bill, and all of a sudden you don't get your degree. These are the kind of things that do happen in the world where spending is done mostly in the private sector, and that's what's being forced upon us through the neoliberal model that we're being forced to live under. It's not that MMT doesn't exist within that neoliberal model. It does. It's just on the micro level, all the spending is being directed away from the public and into the private enterprise so that the profits go to the so-called captains of industry, usually white guys driving Cadillacs, wearing suits. What we need to understand further about spending is that it's a public purposes, I think is the term that we use a lot. And it really does call that out in the Constitution. It also does call out that we need to do defense and other activities with the public money. But there's no order of need given, so it's up to us as citizens to drive the spending. And what MMT allows us to do is to drive spending to what is morally necessary for people to survive and prosper. Because if the people prosper, that will trickle up, as opposed to if companies prosper, maybe it'll trickle down. So what we have is a model that's kind of upside down from what you and I want. We want ourselves, we want our friends, we want our children to prosper. And we can do that by giving them opportunity, making sure that their basic needs of health and even food and shelter are taken care of. There's no reason why we have to have millions of homeless people. Every city you go to, you see people in the street begging for money. Some are fake, some are real. How do you know the difference? And if somebody has chosen that's their way to make a living, it doesn't say much. So that spending on a job guarantee would actually take some of those people off of the street and have them working in a small job for a decent wage. And all of a sudden your streets are nicer. You're not walking past people that you don't know if they're going to live another hour. I've seen them. I've talked to them. And their life experiences are so very different from what ours are, and there's no need to have that happening here in this country. We also can look at beyond just education and basic needs. We could look at some of the higher needs that we have. Funding public libraries is a educational resource for everybody. Combine it with a community center. That's really what they're supposed to be, and many people do take advantage of that. But we need to make it more open and less secluded. We need to have events, public events, sponsored by the city, sponsoring the arts by the cities and the towns, which are funded through the federal job guarantee. Such a critical component of how federal spending can literally change the way we live every single day. And also, we need to also consider that our taxes are really driving the whole economy in a sense. Not that they're spending, but they protect us from the problems of inflation. A serious problem right now because we've been having some very, very low inflation over the past few years, and still we target our money supply to grow at a 2% rate. And why do you think people are in debt? Because our inflationary rate is too low. So where do you go to get more money when you need to spend? You go directly to the bank, and they lend it to you because you've been paying your bills. Really nice. Only now you've got another bill to pay. And this is happening all over the country. We're seeing that there's a rise in the debt level all over the country. And this could be really cured easily by allowing some inflation and doing more spending, so that people will have more money in their pockets, not have to run to the bank and beg to be put in almost involuntary servitude. Our students are graduating college in voluntary servitude. We can kill that right off in two easy ways: by spending not only on a free public education after graduation from high school, but also on a cancellation of existing loans across the board. So all college loans get canceled, and suddenly we get the big, huge stimulus popped into the economy. People have more money every month to go out to spend, and they're in the key demographic. Most of those people in debt on colleges are just graduated college age, where most people do their most spending. This is a drag on our economy. So we need more spending. We need to control our taxes in a manner that controls our economy as a whole. The two things are connected: taxes and spending. The direct opposite of what I said in the beginning, because they are both tools to manage the economy, and that's what our goal is to have under MMT, is a balanced economy. Thank you very much.